Namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Adi Achin. Unknown gunmen, Agyat Veer. Yeah, there are too many names for this phenomenon. We've discussed this too many times on the show, and you guys all know, I keep an Excel sheet. Okay? I keep an Excel sheet with photographs and details on who was popped when. So I'm very interested. Kaun gir raha hai? Who's the guy who's falling down? So I have two gentlemen with me. Very interesting, and they've written a book called Codename Lucifer: The Story of the Unknown Gunman. Let's try and find out what is it that we are talking about. Mr. Shirish Thorat from the Goa Police and, of course, retired, who's going to give us a little insight from there, and Mr. Savio, our very own from Goa Chronicles. Let's try and find out what they have to say. So I'll open with Savio, if you don't mind introducing the book and telling us what told you guys to write this.
Yeah, Adi, thank you for having invited me and Sirish onto your talk. It's always a pleasure. Sirish and I have been friends for a very long time, and what we have seen over a period of time in our conversation, that there are, and the people that we are connected to, are a lot of soldiers without uniform that work for the country, for the security of this country, to keep our people safe, to keep our people happy wherever they are. But nobody talks about them. You know, there are many people who work in the shadows. We term them as soldiers without uniform because most of them are soldiers who who go about doing what would otherwise be considered to be the dirty job of what the organized world that we live in. But the world we live in is seems organized, but it's also got its own disorganized segment, which then wreaks havoc as far as this country's national security is concerned. And the problem actually stems from there. And that's when Suresh and we track all this. That's a part of our job. He in his own expertise, me in my own expertise, track certain aspect of the entire covert operations that our country and other countries also execute and plans that they work on. And that formed the basis of our coming together to say we need to tell the people of this country and the world that India has soldiers without uniform and they must know their story. And what best way to do it than to talk about the unknown gunmen, which we've been following right from the inception of the unknown gunmen, right? So it didn't start with the popping up of dead terrorists in the world. It started much before that, and we started to identify and understand what are the works done by the soldiers without uniform. Now, one of the main things that drove both Suresh and I to actually write this book, besides the aspect of the soldiers without uniform and those who have sacrificed and continue to sacrifice their lives for us, is this concept which we brought out in the book called the persistence of grief. You see, there's not been any closure as such to the terror activities that have happened in this country. And I believe as a nation, the wounds that have been inflicted on so many people's lives, whether it was a 26/11, now you've got Rana being extradited, but there were many people involved in it. We're talking about major terrorist attacks, even the Kanishka, bombings as well. If you go into what happened there, so there has to be a closure. There has to be justice meted out to the people who experienced extreme, sorrow because of terror activities that have happened on our land. And that persistence of grief exists in many people in this country. We want our country to be able to give back to terrorists what we get from terrorists. And we all know that terrorists are not just one entity that suddenly have decided to target people in India. It's an organized operation funded by various different people who want to bring harm to the people of this country, to destabilize this country, to shake the foundation of national security. But that grief has to be addressed. And what the unknown gunmen are doing at this point of time, some of whom Solution and I know are doing exactly that. They are giving an answer to that grief that terrorists have inflicted on our people.
Thank you for that. Sri sir, I'll come to you, sir. I mean, the whole concept of doing this is not new. People have been doing this for a long time. What America did with Osama bin Laden is exactly the same in a larger scale, if I may. Lot more bullets, lot more this thing. What we are seeing in our adversary enemy countries is a category of people kind of just getting wiped off. And they're not the top leadership, they're not the bottom rung people. They're at the level of number two, number three, number four. The actual adjutants, the guys who are doing the job on the ground. Some of them we've not even heard of, but when we actually research, you realize, oh shit, this guy is pretty this thing. What seems to be the patterns?
Well, Adi, thanks for having me over, firstly. As Savio said, and I would like to add to that, that one of the foundations of the judiciary system or the justice system is that justice should not only be done, but seem to have been done. And that is where India lost out actually in the last 40 years approximately, if one starts from the Kanishka bombing and then progresses to the 1993 bombings, and then the Mulund train bombings, the Akshardham attacks, the Pulwamas, the 26/11s, and even the people seem to have forgotten about the Rajasthan Jaipur bombings, which killed 71 people. And only recently, after 17, 18 long years, that the perpetrators have been sentenced not to death but only to life, and it's now a toss-up whether they are going to get a parole or early release because of the time already served. So the as Savio pointed out, the wounds inflicted on the psyche of a nation need to be healed. There has to be closure. And now, when we're talking about the pattern of targets, there has been a concentrated effort not to go after the foot soldiers. Foot soldiers are inconsequential. I would even argue that the 10 gentlemen who were sent from across the border over the sea on 26/11, out of whom only one survived to be hanged, even they are put in the category of foot soldiers, according to me. It is the planners, the organizers, the logistics people, the people who finance the whole operation, those need to be brought to justice, and they have not, unfortunately. Things are being remedied. Some of these people are living a comfortable, relaxed life in places like Switzerland, in places like Canada, USA, even London. But now their complacence and their sense of comfort has been shaken because even they are being hunted down. It is a concentrated effort. Some of it is done through agency sources. Some of them, the job is outsourced. We need not worry about how the job is done as long as they get their just deserts. That's the way I look at it.
I'm a big pro of this saying, ki, yaar, aam khao. Why the hell are you bothered where the damn thing is being grown? Eat the mangoes, that's it. But, putting it down on a book, and I'm going to stay with you, Shirish sir, putting it down on a book actually puts a lot of perspective to a lot of things where people have always thought that India doesn't have the, for the lack of a better word, guts to do it. What do you say to that, sir?
Well, that is a total misconception and exactly the reason why we decided that a book is needed. We only heard about the SAS when the Iranian embassy siege took place.
Yeah.
Until then, the world did not know that the SAS regiment existed. Okay. The Indians, to a large extent, only came to know about SEAL Team 6 after the Osama bin Laden killing. Similarly, it took a James Bond to bring out the presence of MI5. So it does take events for news and realities to percolate down to the civilian sense of appreciation. Our agents have historically been active globally. I mean, there are intelligence agencies across the world who borrow our agents. For example, a particular cyber specialist is borrowed many times for a particular assignment. It's a reciprocal arrangement. Sometimes our snipers are borrowed. Sometimes our demolition experts are borrowed. So, but we never boasted after the fact. And it is now a matter of contention whether did we do the right thing by keeping everything under wraps? Because if we do not boast of our achievements, chances are they just go unacknowledged. They totally go unacknowledged. And now with this book, we are bringing forward that we have the capabilities. We have done things in the past. We will do things afterwards. And that in today's world of different conflicting narratives, social media, and image projection is now a necessity. What was here to before covert now has to be overt. And this book is an effort to lay down the foundations of that overt projection and giving our narrative that whatever you may think you got away with, no, you have not. We are going to come after you. We're going to get wherever you are, in your house, in your office, whether you're walking on the road or you're driving your car, you will get what you deserve.
Savio, coming to you, you saw the politics of it, right? You've written a book and you also saw, I mean, funnily speaking, when I saw the politics during the elections, it was really funny. Every time somebody asked one of the big politicians, are you killing people in Pakistan? Nahi. But हम घर में घुस के मारेंगे. अरे, what the hell is that? So there was a public acceptance of it straight from the Prime Minister, leave alone anybody else. He said it. हम घर में घुस के मारेंगे. खत्म. Problem क्या है उसके अंदर? So how do you see this thing? And could you help us understand any one particular operation that you kind of found fascinating?
So I think it's very important for all of us to understand that yes, in a governmental functioning, I don't think the government would come out openly and ever give permission for a covert operation, and that we know. But let's just say the world and Indians around the world, there are many patriots and many soldiers in different parts of the world that work to protect our country. And they don't require the permission of the government to do what they're supposed to do in the interest of the country. Now, let me give you an example. Everybody is fascinated about Mossad and, wonderful operations, and some of them were undoubtedly wonderful operations. Like the recent Hezbollah attack was brilliance beyond brilliance. There was a time when you believed in brilliance, and this is brilliance beyond brilliance. But I'll give you an example in the book that we spoke about, and which is a reality of the execution, and I'm not going to take the name because I want you to read the book. So there was a particular terrorist housed in a jail in one of the Islamic countries. Okay. That particular terrorist was very important to be eliminated. But we couldn't eliminate him as primarily because he was housed in a jail, given him protection, had security, etc., etc. So the unknown gunmen, of course, got into the act. There was a lady that befriended somebody who was a chef or a cook for that particular individual. And we realized that the only way in which we can get to him, as per this book, was in a two-pronged methodology. Okay? So the first methodology was to get this girl to befriend the chef and introduce a particular chemical into the food that this terrorist was having. The second unique methodology that we deployed was that there was a certain amount of chemical introduced into the water in that jail. Now, the only time that water, which had a bit of a chemical, gets activated is when it comes in contact with the food that gentleman ate. Right? So everybody else in the jail was fine. It was only this gentleman. So primarily what happened was that you had this food that had a chemical and the water in that jail had the chemical. And by virtue of that, there was a reaction that happened to the terrorist and he popped up. Now, Shirish and I both have wild imaginations, and the book has some very interesting executions. But let me tell you, that while we are known for our wild imagination, these are not necessarily our wild imaginations, right? And I say that with responsibility because let's just say that sometimes evil has to be dealt with evil. If you have to deal with a Lucifer, with demons, you don't send Michael to deal with demons, you send Lucifer to deal with demons. And that's really what it's all about. So when you go into dealing with darkness, and this world does have a lot of darkness, that darkness has to be only countered with darkness. Where otherwise there's never going to be light, right? So Lucifer and his fallen angels, the unknown gunmen, as it's known to the world, is a set of those very unique, capable soldiers without uniform that believe that protecting this country is above all.
So you worn a uniform. You've dealt with law and order issues. You've seen this stuff. And you've seen how these guys always have an escape route.
Exactly.
Bhago. Go hide somewhere. Because India is not going to do anything useless, but he content. कुछ नहीं करेंगे ये लोग. What has changed, sir?
Well, what has changed is that we are seeing a resurgence of pride, of resurgence of ego. We have seen a resurgence in the aggression levels. This is the new India. And I think this change has come about in the last decade or so, or slightly more than a decade. No longer are we the subservient, docile, third world country. As we have started to grow economically, as we have the largest youth population in the world, around 650 million people who are below the age of 35. And this is the aggressive, competitive youth. I will take you to a rather different comparison. When you see, if you see the cricket team of India, which was in the 1990s, it was a gentlemanly game and it was subdued and performances were subdued. You see the cricket team today, we are more Australian than the Australians themselves, who were known to be very aggressive in the cricket team. So this is a new India. This is a new team altogether. This team India is in your face, is aggressive. It can get abusive when it wants to. It can break the rules. And it is not shy and averse from doing so. So I think the mentality has changed, and this newfound confidence and aggression also is the result of the pressures, is the pressure cooker effect. It's all been bottled in for the last 40 years. And somewhere something had to give. And perhaps somebody sitting somewhere or heading an agency somewhere has said, I'm going to take the valve of this now. And I'm going to try havoc and let loose the dogs of war. So those dogs of war have been unleashed, unchained, And yes, will there be unfortunate collateral damages? Yes, there will be, of course. Are we sorry for it? Yes, we are, or at least we pretend to be. Okay, as long as the damage is not in India, but outside India. So this aggression is what is powered by that anger, restraint, which we have exercised so far, but no more, no holds barred.
Savio, I want to ask you, when you do research for something like this, and a lot of people are of the opinion, oh, some guy basically takes his visa and his passport and he gets it stamped and goes out of the country and then enters Pakistan and shoots someone and then comes back and takes the trip and comes back and this and that. It's always an Indian agent that is always thought about. Ki, bhai, there is guy looking like us. Is it so?
Well, to execute black op operations, and which is something that has been utilized by other intelligence agencies as well, you don't necessarily have to use Indian guys always. Yes, the planning, the strategy would have a team that has execution from India, and that's how we know some of them. But the fact of the matter is, we want the job done. So if I have to use somebody who's a non-Indian to execute a job and he needs to be paid for it, well, we'll pay him and get the job done. The fact of the matter is to get the job done. We want, and this is a message going out to the terrorists, and I know, and Sirish also knows how the unknown gunmen think. The message is very clear. You messed with India, now we're going to mess with you. Now we're going to ensure that we will continue to mess with you. We will wipe you out of the face of the earth.
And if that requires using poison or a monkey or even a stone thrown at from a fifth-story building, well, so be it.
Absolutely.
The means justify the end.
Right? The point is today, please understand, we are dealing with as Shirish rightly said, a resurgent India. We get a lot of people blaming the government, saying this, saying that. I don't think the government needs to be involved, like I said earlier, in any black op operations. But the government is not the only thing that was responsible for the country. There are many, many soldiers without uniform who know that it is their sworn duty to do what is necessary for this country. And they will do it. I'm telling you, it is important, and it is an advice that both Sirish and I are giving to all those terrorists that are there outside, that we've got you in our sight, and the unknown gunman is going to take each and every one of you part by part, piece by piece, so that all those who inflicted wounds on this country of ours pays for it. There is enough that has been done to test the patience of the people of India. Now it's time for India to hit back. We don't need the government to hit back. We have soldiers without uniform who will hit back and will deal with the planners, and then we will go after the big wigs who are involved in it.
That's true. So when we talk about this whole, game, the Mossad, if we remember the whole Nazi hunters at the first, during the 60s, 70s, they did some fantastic operations from Argentina and this and that and all that stuff. And we've also seen, operations being done within Europe and stuff like that after the Black September. And everybody kind of, as Savio had brought it out some time ago, that there is a lot of populism. There are a lot of movies made. There is a lot of, there is a lot of folk culture which is created around this, right? The CIA is quite dumb in certain cases. I've proven it to multiple times. They get their, backsides handed to them everywhere they go. But the image of the CIA is so, elite and powerful that minute somebody says, "Oh, CIA is behind me," oh, bloody hell, they control everything, which is not the case. They took them 11 years to find Osama. One guy in the mountain, 6.5 feet tall, wearing a turban on his head, not that difficult to find. So when you see this, is there a need for India to kind of start talking about these things? Not now, not recent ones. But is there a need to go back into, let's say, the 60s, 70s and say, you know what, we did some crazy stuff back then as well. We know that the RAW was involved in Sikkim. Right? We know what we did in Bangladesh. Why aren't these stories being told?
Well, traditionally, RNAW has been a very closeted and secretive organization, and that's the way Kao designed it. So Kao and his cowboys, it was designed that way because at that time we had a lot going on. We were on the brink of doing our nuclear testing. We were definitely going to face American sanctions, which we did for a couple of decades after that. We had this whole proxy war of US, Russia, Bangladesh, East Pakistan, West Pakistan going on. And so in those tumultuous decades, there was secrecy was a necessity. And behind the curtains, diplomacy was more effective. In today's world, the whole scenario has changed. It is obvious that the non-governmental organizations are just a front for the CIA, and that the Americans are actively sort of involved in arming Pakistan and arming the Taliban, and they're arming both sides of the conflict, and the whole giant military industrial complex is ultimately behind this. So the point here, what I'm trying to make here, is that we are also now a player. We are now what, the second largest army in the world after the USA, and we are a significant consumer of defense products. We are having this whole huge push of Make in India, and we are now a player, and we have to act accordingly. The rules of the games have changed. No longer is the battlefield on the ground there, or on the air, on the sea. The battlefield is also in the social media construct. The battlefield is also in the trading construct. The battlefield is even in the field of water, in the field of seeds, in the field of intellectual property, and industrial construction, where even if you come to say semiconductor chips also, AI is the new battlefield. So the battlefields have now totally changed. They have come out in the open. So we in India are also adapting and recognizing the need that our foreign policy in terms of spycraft, in terms of retribution, needs to be more transparent, more out there in your face. And what previously we used to congratulate ourselves on a job well done, and quiet, somebody getting a quiet medal but mentioned in the dispatches, but no newspapers. No, now we need to get it in the newspaper, we need to get it in the social media. And I think the powers that be has recognized this fact.
That's, I think, there because there is a certain, people kind of look at a pattern of justice and say this is what we want, and that's how it goes. My last question to both you gentlemen, Savio, what was it? And it's a common question, so if you can share something. When you research about these things, there is always that one thing that you go, oh shit, I didn't expect this. So for both of you, I think sirs will be a little more interesting, because somebody who's actually been in law and order will be, the surprise levels are a little higher. But what was something that surprised you, without divulging too much details, but lighting a little fire in the audience that, yeah, I want to know about this. So tell us something that surprised you.
Well, what actually surprised me in our research is that the unknown gunmen are actually very good gentlemen. Okay? They're just like us, great people, fun to talk to, wonderful over a drink. They love food, some of them. And they're not scary in the scary sense. They're common people. They're soldiers without uniform. But when they're on an assignment, I can tell you, there can be nobody more destructive and more effective than the unknown gunmen, because they are with a mission. And to me, the surprising factor is in my research is that I thought I'd meet somebody that is, really Rambo material. Looks like a John Rambo carved body and all those kind of things. It's not that at all. Some of the minds that are there may not be your Hrithik Roshan Kabir character, but man, they've got some insight into what they're doing, and I can tell you even now that you've seen only 22 kills. There are about 30 names on that list. There are 8 more to go in the first list, and there's another list coming out.
And then there are also subsidiaries which have वो गया तो ये भी साथ में चले गया था. There are also that. What about you, sir? What do you think? Something that surprised you?
Yeah, so one thing which surprised me and actually distressed me, and I'm still a little mad about it, is that there is not sufficient funding. Money is not coming freely. And that's because what happens is, in certain cases where there have been a couple of failures, and it's because the thing is, if you give peanuts, you're going to get monkeys. Okay, so in
Correct.
certain cases, whether we need a sniper or whether we need a particular instrument or we need thermal sights or we need a particular sort of equipment, that is not forthcoming, and that angers me. We need to have bigger funding. If necessary, we need to have private funding, or that can be routed through any other way, because inferior documentation, inferior weaponry, and then you just don't get that sort of talent then. So I think money has to be substantially more. Sometimes back when I was actually involved in the private military, I was in the private military for 20 years. Now I'm retired. I have refused assignments purely because the money was not enough. Because one is always balancing between risk and reward. When you are a private military contractor, you are always balancing the risk and reward. The reward has to be substantial because of the risk we are taking is substantial.
Correct.
So that is what surprised me and angered me, lack of funds.
I hope somebody listens to this, and I'm sure after that something does happen, sir. Thank you so much for both of you for actually writing this. And actually, when I messaged you, the next thing I did was ordered the book. So I'm going to sit down and read it because this is something that really interests me. I'm a son of a photo reconnaissance pilot, right?
Oh, wonderful.
So my dad used to do the same kind of stuff, not shoot people, but yeah, he used to uh, photograph various different
Well, one
things.
of my childhood memories is going up with my father in a in a military aircraft, those Dakotas, and then I saw this cameraman with the handheld camera 5,000 feet above the ground, lowered by a harness and a rope, and there were people inside, and he was swinging and doing the geo mapping,
Yeah.
and I still remember that. Still gives me the chills. I mean, that was the old timers. They used to do it like that, literally hanging out of a plane. Yeah,
These guys would dive into valleys,
yeah,
right? So you're in a valley at 700 kilometers, 800 kilometers an hour. You're supposed to photograph one little piece of real estate,
yeah,
and you're probably like that over the real estate.
yeah.
And coming out means you straighten and you come out, otherwise you're going to go hit the wall. So there's
Exactly.
no this thing. So this kind of stuff would be done in those days.
Yeah,
Nowadays, for that thing, we guys will just open Google Maps, or call up one of these satellite companies. Hey, bhai, jara wo bhej de. Just send me $100. You send him $100, the image will
yes,
be there with you within
exactly.
15 minutes.
Yeah,
And it's so easy. And back in the day, guys used to do all sorts of things to kind of, have this operation going. And I remember, and the amount of effort that actually goes into do covert operations is quite a lot.
yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for spending the time with me and kind of sharing your details. I think Savio is frozen up, but thank you so much, frozen up Savio.
Namaste, namaste, and
For,
thank you very much again for having us.
thank you, and I'm looking forward for reading this book, and I will obviously write my commentary on my website, which is going to come up. Guys, please like this video, buy the book, and I'll link the link in the description so you guys can actually buy the book. I know all of you who are there in my channel, you guys love reading all this stuff. So please read this, support the effort, and of course the channel
Adi,
as
before we end, I just want
please.
to say something. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we're all talking about 2611, and we've got one of the masterminds come down now, extradited. But there was one reconnaissance man that Shirish, actually mapped, which has never come out, and that is what started our sojourn into the recent Maldives episode. You know, there was a young boy by the name of, not a young boy, but a man by the name of Mohammed Zillian. Now, Mohammed Zillian was, you had a David Headley, you had one more person, and then you had one Mohammed Zillian. Now, Mohammed Zillian's currently somewhere in this world. He was very instrumental for very crucial photographs to execute the 2611. He's a Maldivian.
Yeah.
In September the year before, you had Maldivian guys again, terror groups, trying to attack Ram Mandir and Akshardham Temple. That's the kind of people who are targeting us, and those are the kind of people the unknown gunmen are going after. And that's
Oh,
really
absolutely.
the truth. So my respect to them, and my only request to the people of this country is to pray for the soldiers without uniform. Is it doing a service to this country?
Thank you so much for that. I think that's a great roundup. Namaskar. Jai Hind. Jai Bharat.
God
Jai
bless. Bye. Jai Hind.